Shafali Verma had 12 international wickets before today. In fact, she had 1 in ODI cricket. And if you look at her franchise record, she also doesn't take wickets. And you watch her bowl, there's this incredible part-time energy to her, right? She sort of clumps in a little bit and she's trying things and she feels like a batter who thinks, I might as well have a bowl. Everything about her screens, I like to bowl in the nets, right? Rather than I bowl a lot in international cricket. Or in cricket in general, it's just not something she does a lot. And today, she takes 2 wickets. And she's got these 2 different kinds of deliveries, one where she sort of flicks it out with her finger, and the other one where she's obviously just spinning it. So it's not like she's got no talent or anything. It's just that it hasn't really come together, and India haven't really used her. And I mean, like, quite literally, India did not actually want to have her in the squad, right? And yet she's ended up with 87 runs and 2 wickets in the most important game in the history of Indian women's cricket. India won this World Cup with a part-time off-spinner who was a replacement player who's not even supposed to be in the squad.
This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. If you want to be part of the community that makes content like this, head over now.
The Indian team has been lopsided from the start of this tournament. It's actually been quite enjoyable that the normal people who moan about the men's team have moved over to moaning about the women's team. But it makes sense. You look at this side and you say to yourself, there's something not quite right here. They were playing extra batters all the way down the order and yet never seemed to have enough bowling. Harmanpreet Kaur, who is obviously a legend and the 2017 game is still really important, but no one cares about that when she's bowling her very, very ordinary off-spin in crucial games at crucial times. At some stages, I'd almost argue she under-bowled herself, and there are other periods where you're like, please don't bowl. Why you get the ball out of your own hand? You don't need to be doing this. What's been fascinating about this side throughout the tournament is that they've been in constant development. Early on, there was just too much batting. And in this game, they had 7 bowling options, and Harmanpreet didn't actually deliver anything. So somehow they've gone from a team where you're just like, they can bat to number 9, but can they ever take a wicket? To a team that has bowled out South Africa in a World Cup final to win it. There's no doubt when you look at the Indian team compared to the Australian team, they're completely different beasts. The Australian team is one of the more unique combinations we've ever seen in cricket. They also went home early and didn't win the final. But you look at the actual structure of that side and it is absolutely phenomenal. And yet India was the opposite. We were all picking holes in the way that they were selecting teams. On top of that, this was a pretty rocky qualification period, right? There was a section of time where we were all like, they're not going to make the semi-final. Like, they're really in some danger here of not going through to the next round. If you compare this 50-over run to the men's run in 2023, I mean, that was on rails. Like, around the corner, it did nothing wrong all the way through. Whereas this was more like a collection of players that they knew were talented, but they never quite understood how to put them together. And then slowly but surely as the tournament went on, they kept tweaking it enough and so it worked. And then weirdly, on top of all of that, an injury might have made the biggest difference. So there's always going to be a bit of a feeling that they won this tournament a little bit out of turn, in that you could see what they're building towards. And even during this tournament, you're like, maybe the next tournament or the one after is when they're ready. And they were like, well, what about if we just get it all together now? What if we, I don't know, pick extra bowlers? What if our batters go absolutely ballistic and we start making these big totals? And so the team that looked like they wouldn't qualify went into the final as favourites, having just beaten the best side that ever existed. And when I say out of turn, what I really mean is they just jumped the queue. You look at some of the other teams in this tournament, they're a lot more experienced, especially in knockout situations and in World Cups. They understand exactly where to put their best players. They might have some holes in their side, but there's a lot of experience to be able to drag you forward. This Indian side doesn't really have any of that, right? But a collection of players, one after the other, just kept standing up. Like Jemimah Rodriguez in the semi-final, batting out of position and playing like she was born to bat at number 3 and completely structuring the entire innings around herself. And often those kind of anchor knocks can really cause troubles. And instead, Rodriguez just allowed for the game to be won around her because she wasn't going anywhere. Deepti Sharma had some games in this tournament where you're like, is she bowling at her best? Is she completely in control? Then she had other matches where it looked like she was going to take a wicket almost every ball. She's such a phenomenally talented cricketer that sometimes I watch her and go, I don't think she knows how good she can be yet. Earlier in the tournament, we wrote this big piece about Shriti Mandana and about how she's just absolutely upscaled in every single way. And she hasn't even ended up being the complete star of this tournament just because India have had so many players that are incredible. But if you go back and the sort of impact that she has, and also how much she sort of warps the opposition bowling plans. Like when she's out there, teams are so hyper conscious of her that they almost sleep on the person at the other end. And if you look, she's been in incredible partnerships all the way through this tournament. And a lot of that is like her gravitational pull. So even when she doesn't play the great innings, which you could argue she didn't today, she's still so important to this side. And then you've got Risha Ghosh, who came in down the order in one game and just absolutely destroyed. And on top of that, has bowled a lot of very, very good spells as well. That's like 4 players. But these aren't really the legendary names of the past. They might go on to be the legendary names. But if you think back to when Harmanpreet was the dominant player, right? The Har monster, everyone knew who she was. Jhulan Goswami, if you go and look at bowling records, especially in ODI cricket, her name's just everywhere. She bowled so many deliveries and did it so well over an incredibly long period. Just a brilliant stalwart of a bowler. Then you got Mithali Raj, who played so long that the entire game changed around her and people suddenly didn't understand how good she was because she couldn't whack the ball in T20 cricket. Not understanding that in the 90s she was a dynamic player. She was dynamic before anyone had even watched a women's game. So you look at Jemima and Deepti and Risha and Smriti and you go, look at the shoulders that these players are standing on. I mean, Harmanpreet is in the side with them. They see the legends. And they've not just joined this group, they've added to it in a way that Indian women's cricket has never had before. The 2017 semi-final and also the final that they almost won before Anya Shrubsole destroyed them were the high marks, right? And they have just leaped that. They've beaten Australia, which is what they did in 2017, but they've also won the World Cup. And they did it with a young core who can definitely improve further. And during the tournament, they actually had to reshape who they were. Shafali Verma was not supposed to play in this World Cup, and India was not supposed to win it.